Hello, good morning, good afternoon, good day, good night, good everything. So this is a totally random video, right? And it's based off of a conversation that I was having with someone. We're not friends. I don't really know her. We just had a conversation in passing. And she kind of shared some things. Sometimes you just need somebody to talk to. And I guess she didn't have anything to lose because she didn't know me and I didn't know her. We just happened to be in the same area. And we were talking about just like knowing when to let go, like knowing when it's time, when your time is up. And I've told you all before, I'm not married, so I think I look at things a little bit differently. And right now, this really is for those of you who are not married. Um, I don't know. I think that we have to be really um, cautious in trying to force something to work. Sometimes we try to force things to work. You all, one time, a couple of years back, I bought this lawnmower, right? I bought a lawnmower and it didn't have all the parts. It was really, I won't say it didn't have all the parts. It actually had all the parts, but it was missing um, a couple of screws, like the right size screws. So what I did was, because I didn't feel like dealing with it, I decided that I was going to use some screws that I already had. So I went in my little pantry area, in my little toolbox, and I just decided that, okay, these screws, in my mind, a screw is a screw. So I decided that I was going to just use something that was there. And I tried and tried and tried to use that screw so I could just go ahead and put this lawnmower together and stop paying this guy to cut my grass because I'm from the country. I don't have to pay you to cut my grass because I know how to cut grass. So I was just trying to make it work, and it didn't work. And I found myself, I realized that I was stripping um I started to strip like that part of the lawnmower, and my mind said, okay, you need to stop. You need to stop, and you need to just go ahead and put this stuff back in the box and take it back from to where you got it from. And it's interesting because I actually thought about that when I was having a conversation with this young lady about how sometimes we try to make things work that don't work. You try to make things work that just don't work. Um, it's human nature to want to be in a relationship. I always tell people, God values relationships. He turned himself into a relationship. We have God the Father, God the Son, God the Holy Spirit. Even in the very beginning, he said it wasn't good for Adam to be alone. So I'm going to make him a helper that is suitable for him. So it is part of our design to want to be in relationships. And I'm not just talking about, want to be married, but I mean just having healthy friendships. But when you start to try to force something to work that just doesn't work, you will only end up injuring yourself or that other person. And if you are single, and single is anyone who is not married. I don't care if you have been dating that person for 3 years, 5 years, 7 years, or 20 years. If you are not legally married, you are still single. I'm sorry. I'm single too, so don't be upset about it. But if you're not married, then you're single. Um so at some point you're going to have to really ask yourself, is this it? Like, do I really want to spend the rest of my life forcing something to work? Do I really want to spend the rest of my life or the rest of my time in this relationship forcing it to work out? Because you're going to end up getting more and more hurt. And not only that, you're going to end up hurting yourself. Because let me tell you something, anything that God ordains, you don't have to force it to work out. That doesn't mean that you're not going to have to work to keep it. And that doesn't mean that you're not going to have to take care of it, because you need to take care of the things that God has given you and gives you. It just means that you're not going to have bruised up knuckles and a bruised up heart in the process of doing that. So, I was talking to this lady and she was telling me how, she's been in this relationship with this guy for almost 9 years. Almost 9 years. And He proposed to her, I think she said 6 years ago, maybe about 6 years ago. And she says, but we just don't get along. She says we've never gotten along. They don't have any kids, which is a blessing if you ask me, because she actually can have a clean break. But she says we've always had issues from day one. And she said something that I I I I was challenged by. She said everything in me knows that he's not the one for me, but I've been with him for so long. And I understand. I understand because not everybody gets out of a relationship in early on. Some people just continue to stay in that relationship because they think that it will change. But out of her own mouth, and I'm sure some of you can relate, she's saying that it hasn't changed. In fact, it's gotten worse, and that she feels like she's just trying to force it to work. At what point do you just confront yourself? At what point do you confront yourself? Because I told you all, I have like this thing that I do in my relationships, and maybe that's why I'm single right now. I do checks with myself because women, we're really good about checking on the person who we're in a relationship with. We're really good about that. But what we have to do is we have to learn how to check ourselves. We have to do a self-check. And one of the things that I do often is I check with myself to make sure I'm okay. Are you okay in this situation? Are you okay in this relationship? If it doesn't change, are you okay with that? If it doesn't change, if it stays the way that it is, will you be okay? And if I can honestly say that no, I can't imagine it being like this for another year, another 2 years, another 6 months. If I can say that, then I have a track record of walking away and hurting myself. Because if it hurts me to stay in it, I'm perfectly okay with hurting myself to get out of it. Because who wants to continue to force something to work that's not supposed to work? Especially those of us who are saying that we're waiting on God. You're waiting on God to give you your mate. God's not going to give you to anybody when you currently are leasing yourself out to somebody else. Do you understand? So we don't really get to do that in the meanwhile. Okay, I'm going to be with this guy until God sends me my husband. Well, he's not going to send you anybody because you're already being occupied by somebody else. And you're already occupying somebody else's space. So you're going to have to get to a place where you can say, I need to spend time with me. And I need to figure out why I'm so comfortable settling for less than what I deserve. Why am I hanging around in this situation knowing that it's not going to change? Knowing that the person that I'm with, I don't even really feel like he's supposed to be with me and I'm supposed to be with him. But we've been together 9 years. So what are you going to do? Give him 9 more? Life is very short. Life is very short. If you put life up against eternity, it's a blink. So even if the good Lord gave you 80 years, 80 years up against eternity is a very long time. And I don't personally believe that he wants me to be miserable or wants you to be miserable for 80 years. You think I'm about to wait to get to heaven to be okay, to be happy, to have some joy and some peace? No, absolutely not. Because he cares just as much about us here than he cares about us getting to him for eternity. So at some point, you're going to have to dig deep. You're going to have to dig deep and be willing to let some things go. And I can assure you, if it's yours, we serve a very good God. We serve a God who can orchestrate some things. He's not going to let anything happen to your stuff, and he's not going to let anybody take your stuff. If that person is actually supposed to be yours, maybe it really is more about he's not yours right now. And what happens is, if you don't just go ahead and let that go, you're going to end up with this person, and then you're going to spend the first few years with this person recovering from what they did to you and forgiving them for what they did. Whereas had you just released that person and allowed yourself time to be healed and to be whole, and allowed God to deal with that person separate from you, then you won't have all these issues. But at some point, you're going to have to confront yourself. At some point, you're going to have to do a self-check and ask yourself, am I okay as is? Am I okay overall? Because your good days really should outnumber your bad days. And if it doesn't change, will I be okay with it? And if the answer is no, and you're still in that dating phase, you're going to have to make a hard decision. Sometimes we got to do tough love with ourselves. And tough love actually looks like your willingness to release people. You all listen to me. I have let people go who I actually wanted to keep. I've let only two. I always say only two of them. The rest of them I was glad when you buy. But I've let two people go that I actually wanted to keep. They weren't good for me. And I just had to be honest. This is a painful relationship. And it wasn't like a physical abuse. It was more emotional, and just when you're dealing with somebody who has a lot of bitterness and unforgiveness, and they're hurting, they'll hurt you even if they don't intend to. So that's when you have to just say, you know what, in order for me to be okay, I gotta let this go. I gotta let this go, because otherwise, what are you doing? You're giving away time that you'll never get back. And let's say this. If you know, just like that lady said to me, she says, everything in me knows that I'm not even supposed to be with him, that he's not even the person for me. Well, what are you doing? If you know that God has already told you no, why are you trying to make it into a yes? Do you not understand the distress and the pain and the heartache and the consequences and the weight of carrying something that does not belong to you? Do you not understand how painful it will be for you to hold on to something that is not yours? It's one thing to fight for something that's yours. It's a whole nother ball game to fight for something that's not. Because see, when you fighting for something that doesn't belong to you, when you throwing punches, that thing that you throwing punches for is steady hitting you in both of your eyes. So at what point are you going to let go? Be your own best friend and wait. I'll tell people, I'm not waiting on nothing. I'm waiting on something. And if I wanted nothing, I could have held on to some people that weren't even supposed to be mine and tried to make them into something. But it was an option. It was an option, but it was just not something that I wanted to deal with, because that's too much time on my knees trying to pray for this joker to do right when he's not even mine. There's consequences. There are consequences that come when you step outside of God's will. And I said this in another video. You can't fight Satan outside of God's will. So I'm going to hold on to you, knowing that you're not mine. And the enemy is going to continue to just taunt me and tempt you and taunt me and tempt you and taunt me and tempt you. And I'm steady trying to pray for you when you're not even mine for me to be praying for. You're not even mine to keep. So what am I doing? So that's what I mean. At some point, you're going to have to confront yourself. And you're going to have to say, is this mine? And if you know that that person is not yours and you're single, let that person go. And this can be men or women, y'all, because I'm not just talking to The ladies, I'm talking to the guys too. If you know that that person is not yours, I don't care if it's 5 years, I don't care if it's 1 kid or 2 kids, I don't care if it's 10 years or 20 years. If everything in you tells you that this not even my stuff to have, that kind of makes you a relationship shoplifter, because you just grabbed a relationship that wasn't even yours to have. If you want that type of stress in your life, you keep holding on to it. Otherwise, you just need to have a real conversation with that person. Because I can assure you that person probably thinks the same thing, but they're probably thinking just like you. We've been together 10 years. But they know. They know. Because the same way you know. Know when to let go. Know when to let go. Ask God to give you the wisdom and the strength and the courage to give those things, give anything back to Him that wasn't yours to grab. We don't want sticky fingers, y'all. Sticky fingers, we start picking up things that don't belong to us. And it just takes a decision. There's no way that it won't hurt. And if you accept the fact that letting go of something that's not yours will hurt, it'll help with the pain. Because like I told you, I've let people go that I wanted to keep. And I'm not going to say that it didn't hurt, because it did hurt. It just hurt me differently because I knew I actually let go of something that wasn't mine. It wasn't mine. So I just had to. It was a choice that I made. And it's a very real choice that some of you need to make as well. But that's pretty much all I want to share with you all. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next video. Bye-bye.